everyone, it's Mandy here, the co-creator of Remote Workers Worldwide, and I'm super excited to be here today with Jeremy of the mmhmm team to talk about all things work from anywhere reimagined. Now, for the first time ever, this session is a pre-recorded session inside mmhmm because we're here across all different time zones. So Jeremy here is dialing in all the way from Thailand, off his boat, I'm not sure. Maybe you're in a different location right now. And I'm here working in my tiny house in Portugal, and I know most of you members are most probably based in the US or elsewhere in a different time zone. So although this is a pre-recorded session, we'll be here interacting with you live during this next 30 minutes to answer any of your questions inside the comments. So if you have any questions or comments throughout the next 30 minutes, please make sure to drop them below and we'll be there answering them live. All right, without further ado, I'd like to pass on the floor to Jeremy because for today's session, the seats are turned and I'm the one being interviewed. So Jeremy, I'll pass on the floor to you.
Sure. It's good to meet everyone. Mandy, so you said you were in a tiny home, but where is the wildest or most interesting place you've ever remote worked from?
Oh, wow. That's a big question. So many places that I've worked from. I've been working remotely for the past 8 years, I think 2018. Worked from many different places all around the world, from Indonesia, Colombia, United States, and all around Europe as well. But I think when I think back of the most interesting place that I've worked from, it might be more the type of place, which was in a camper van, which suits well to our tiny spaces that we're both used to working from. This was, I think, 2-3 years ago when I was actually intrigued to move to Portugal and settle here for the long term. And I was doing a road trip to work remotely alongside the coast of Portugal. And I was working inside the camper van. And I remember there was one night when we were stuck in the middle of nowhere. So we were going off the road and we were kind of stuck in the dirt. So we were there, I think, for 24 hours and we had to do some calls. But luckily, we had our Wi-Fi connection. It wasn't a Starlink, but it was apparently a pretty good Wi-Fi connection. So I was able to do calls while being stuck in the middle of nowhere inside the camper van. So that pops to mind when I think of the most interesting place that I've worked from.
I think that counts. I think, yeah, +1 to working while mobile in a vehicle. I am in Taipei at the moment, but I'm on my way back to the boat. About a year ago, I bought a sailboat on a whim. And with the realization that like now is the time, just because the technology is there, more and more, I think, boats and RVs are on the market sort of in this post-pandemic era. So I think that there's a lot to be said for it. If people are curious about sort of a more adventurous way to explore remote working, I highly recommend it. So.
I love that. Can I just begin a quick question right
course,
there?
Yeah.
I'm curious. How do you have internet? What type of Wi-Fi do you use? Do you use Starlink or another?
Yeah, so I'm Starlink. I use it generally pretty happily, but I wish there were more options. The service is quite good, but if you're roaming, it gets a little bit more expensive. But it's pretty reliable. Sometimes your satellites will drop out. But if I'm onshore, then I'll just be in a cafe like most remote workers, but it works.
Good. We're actually converting a camper van now as well next to the tiny house, an even smaller tiny house on wheels to work remotely as well to further explore the coast of Portugal. And we're considering to get a Starlink as well. So curious to also experience it myself, but good to know from your side.
After the call, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, I really would encourage folks to look into if they're able to. It's not for everyone, but if you're at a place in your life where you can be mobile and you can be a little bit adventurous, I love it. It's incredible.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of posts actually inside the community these past few weeks where members are working from their camper van as well or other places. So maybe a quick question to the community members who are watching this right now. Please let us know, where are you currently working from, or what is the craziest place that you've worked from inside the comments? And we'd love to hear from your stories too.
Cool. Okay, so what tips would you have for people just getting started with remote work?
Getting started. So again, it's quite a long time for me, 8 years in the making. But I think number one is, when you get started, it's quite challenging nowadays to, if you're working remotely. Back then in 2018, when I was still working back in a like tech corporate 9 to 5 office job, I didn't have a plan. I just quit my job and I booked a ticket to Bali to figure out Indonesia, to figure out how to make remote work. And what I did was I surrounded myself with like-minded people to learn from them. How did they make it work? So whether you're just starting out, maybe you don't have a remote job yet, or you're currently working remote, I think my number one tip, if you're just getting started, would be surround yourself with like-minded people, because you're just one connection away from the right opportunity, or someone knowing somebody working at a company that might have a remote opportunity for you as well, or maybe just like sharing tips or challenges together that only you understand as a fellow remote worker. So yeah, I think the remote work community that we have, Remote Workers Worldwide, is a great resource to surround yourself with like-minded people, but both online but also offline. So what I do, I'm now based in Portugal, in Sintra since last year, and I just missed in-person connections as well. Yeah. So I've been actively looking for in-person. So this is an entrepreneur meetup, but there's tons of digital nomad meetups or remote work meetups as well that you can attend in person. So highly recommend looking up those in-person connections and events as well.
Yeah, and just
how's that for you, Jeremy, when you work off a boat? How do you find those?
This is a little bit of foreshadowing because we're going to talk about some of the challenges later, but I think a very real challenge is the solitary nature of it. So finding ways to plug in just to a community, because you don't have the benefit of going into the office anymore. Yeah, that is super key. It can be a very kind of lonesome road sometimes. But yeah. So my first tip though is, because I'm based in Asia, like my chosen surroundings are Taipei, Taiwan, and wherever the boat is, which typically is off the coast of Malaysia or Thailand, which puts me sort of at a disadvantage from a time zone perspective, because most of my team is in America or some of them are in Europe. And so like my big tip is if you are in sort of like far-flung places, to be willing to work kind of weird hours. And I think it's for sure a sacrifice, but I think it counts for a lot, because it can be easy to sort of like fall off the radar a little bit. If you're a remote worker, a lot of people who are working remotely are on contracts, so they can already maybe feel a little bit outside of like the nuclear organization. So I think just making a little bit of time zone sacrifice to show up synchronously occasionally is a really is a thing I'm a big proponent of. I'm often taking calls at 3:30 in the morning, 4 a.m. I think everyone has to kind of define their own sort of like boundaries and what's acceptable. But for me, I just like really value the synchronicity of it. So that's one thing I would recommend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's I'm like in the perfect middle in Europe, where you can have the US connections and time zones, but then also like we have today with the events, both in the US and in Asia.
Another tip that I would have is just if you're traveling a lot, booking hotels can be an art form. So one of the things that I think is really critical is good Wi-Fi, obviously. And often you can read it in the comments, and like previous guests will say like, hey, really good Wi-Fi or really bad Wi-Fi. And like, that's really helpful. So check the comments of the places that you're going to stay. And then another thing is the booking tools these days tend to be quite good with the room previews. I use Agoda. I don't know, whatever. I'm sure there are others out there, but the room previews tend to be very accurate, and you can get a really good sense of whether or not the room that you're about to book is going to be good to work out of or not. So like, does it have a desk? Does it have good lighting? Like these things are really important when you're on the road and when you're staying at a place, maybe for multiple nights in a row. So highly recommend doing the groundwork research.
Yeah. Actually, a fun update to plug in on there, because I highly agree that one of the key challenges as a remote worker, when you want to work from anywhere, you want to book a trip, and you go to Airbnb or to Booking.com, and they maybe mention, since the pandemic, I think they added a filter. It's a remote-friendly place, or it has a desk, etc. But then you get there and the Wi-Fi is really bad, or the chair is not ergonomic, etc. So I think this is really something that still needs to be solved, or it's something that can be done a lot better. And I'm actually we're partnering up with a community, with a company, with an organization that's launching very soon, that has a platform that has really curated accommodation, flights, experiences, etc. in terms of remote work. So really, curated for remote workers to make sure that this experience is done a lot smoother than it is being done now. So stay tuned for that.
Exciting. That's very cool. Cool. So maybe let's talk for a little bit about digital tools. What are your favorite digital tools for working remotely?
To start with, I love the tool. So this is actually where we record this session in today, which I think is really user friendly and engaging for video sessions like this. But other than that, I live in LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is obviously the place where our community has grown from a 0 to currently 175,000 members and counting. So this is my go-to place for networking, also kind of visibility, like you mentioned, Jeremy. You're not in the office, so it's really hard to be visible, I guess, as well, whether you work for an employer or you work for yourself, like me, to network with the right people, etc. And also to just build relationships with like-minded people. LinkedIn is, for me, the go-to platform and digital tool that I use every single day. Another one that I'm thinking of is Crisp. That has really been a game changer for me when working from locations that are really, maybe from a boat as well, when you have the waves in the background or maybe ocean sounds, which can be quite cool, but maybe not for team meetings. But I remember I worked from a beach bar in Spain a couple of years ago, and the music was quite loud. So Crisp is an amazing tool that you can just toggle on in your meetings to cut any background noise. Also human voices, I think, which is great. So when you're working together with your partner or you have your kid working or walking around in the same room, then this is a must-have tool for any remote worker to cut down any background noise. All right, Jeremy, what are your go-to tools and platforms to use on a daily basis?
Well, thank you for mentioning mmhmm. I would have to agree. I'm maybe a little bit biased. This is the tool that my team and I are building. But this is not only we're using this in this interview context, but it's not just for an interview. This is to give anyone who works a lot on video superpowers. I think with especially remote audiences, with how often we tend to be on video, we often take it for granted that what's coming out of the webcam is sort of what we need to show up into the meeting with, but mmhmm gives you a layer and the ability to do a little bit of customization. You can change your layout and do some fun sort of branding things if you want to build your own personal brand. You can throw slides on over your shoulder to make the pitch a little bit more engaging. But generally, we're just trying to make you the best you on video. It works in synchronous meeting context, so every Zoom call you might have or Google Meet, but it also is great in recordings as well. If you want to walk someone through a screen share or a demo, it makes it easy to do that too.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the recorded function as well that you quickly mentioned, that I actually used it once for one of, I think it was a potential client that I wanted to send a proposal to. And I used the recording feature inside mmhmm to send them an asynchronous video. And this just reminded me of the power of, using features like mmhmm, not just to make synchronous meetings more engaging, but also leverage the power of synchronous communication to have fewer meetings. Because in the end, I think we all want less meetings in our day. So I think it's great for recorded sessions as well, and to basically have more time in your day to not spend on meetings.
well, also, when you're working remotely, time zones challenges can be real. So, I think embracing asynchronous in general is really wise because you don't actually have to be on the same calendar as someone else. You can also take your time to really build the presentation, build a walkthrough, send it over, and you can skip the meeting entirely. Yeah. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, especially
the
in your
other
case
thing,
when
because
you're
of that time zone issue, just developing a time zone calculator or time zone system, I think is really wise. There's a lot of kind of weird hiccups with daylight savings time and just, so having a system for that is really important.
Yes. That reminds me of another tool actually that I wanted to mention that is also one of my go-to tools, if I can still mention one.
Of course.
It's called World Time Buddy, if I'm correct. And this is exactly what you mentioned, where you can basically pick any city or or a country where you can see the time zone. So it's great if you work with clients or team members across the world, so that you can see what their time is across different time zones. So yeah, this is a great tool that I always use when scheduling meetings or events like this as well.
I mean, just yesterday we were doing a quick prep for this and a meet and greet, and we were coordinating not only three time zones but 3 continents. So yeah,
Exactly.
managing that can be a challenge. So having a
Yeah,
system is good.
I agree.
Okay, Mandy. So you are working in a small space. I'm usually working in a small space, but whether small or big, when you're on the go, what tips do you have for the office setup?
Yes, I think ergonomics is a really important one. I noticed after working remotely for quite a while now, that I've been feeling it in my in my back, in my neck, etc. After a while, when you don't have like the right setup. So having like I have a laptop standard, for example. I think Nextstand is one that I used in the beginning as well, and I still use every single day to wherever you are, if you're working from a cafe, or right now I'm in a tiny garden office, I like to call it. So we actually created a small office next to our tiny house to have like a dedicated workspace that we can also move, like kind of separate work and life. But here as well, we have our home office setup ergonomically. So we have a standing desk, good chair. So this Nextstand is great for example, if you're traveling and you're working from a cafe, or maybe a camper van as well, or a boat. So I think this is one of the key things I always take whenever I'm traveling or on the go. The laptop stand and maybe a mouse and a keyboard, etc., to make sure you're ergonomically set up for success. And have maybe a good massage therapist in the area where you are. How about you, Jeremy?
There's a lot to be said for just changing your environment from time to time, not just for ergonomics, but just for like just keeping the creative juices flowing.
Exactly. That too. Yeah, I like to do that as well. Like when I'm more creative, maybe work from a cafe, and then when I have some deep work to do, work from home. And maybe when I have a call like yesterday, I did like some calls while walking outside here because the weather is really beautiful here in Portugal these days. So switching up office environments, I think, is also key.
One tip I'd have is if you're traveling to other countries frequently, always spring for the hotspot package. Like often they're like, this one is like regular, but this one has hotspot. It's maybe a couple more dollars more, but you never know when you're going to need that backup. And the hotspot has saved my booty a couple times. The other thing is AirPods. So I resisted AirPods for a long time. I thought the wired ones were great, but the noise cancellation feature, the fact that you can take them and go and just take a call on a walk or something is huge. So I resisted it. But I'd recommend the pros if you get them, just because it does have that transparency and noise canceling feature.
Yeah. You remind me I should switch, because I've been using these big headphones, both I think they're called. I've had them for 8 years or so, but I use them everywhere. So this is also definitely one of the go-to equipments that I use when I'm working remotely. So when I'm working from a cafe, you'll see me with the big headphones on as well. So I might go for the AirPods instead. So
I can't deny that the noise cancellation on those is going to be better, but they're just so big and heavy, and your ears get kind of sweaty. I don't know. I like the small form factor.
I know, exactly. But it's so good to get in your focus zone and really boost productivity. Sometimes I can be for hours just like being focused with my headphones on. But I agree, the AirPods are way more. They look more appealing.
The other thing that I'd say is presentation matters on video, and so like just paying a little bit of mind to just your audio visual setup is a big one. And so like lighting is really clutch. So I just travel with this. It packs down. I just throw it in my backpack, and it's its own little tripod and a small beauty dish. And I do. So right now I'm doing the same thing. I never just directly shine it on my face. I always bounce it off a wall, and you just get this like suddenly this big, nice lighted surface, and your lighting is a lot better. Yeah, I'm not using anything fancy. I'm just using a desk light pointed at a curtain, but it works too.
Nice. That's
on the
good.
boat, so
yeah, exactly. I have one here as well, a tiny version.
Yeah.
But this was especially during winter time. important, because
Right.
I think it was around 5 p.m. and it was getting dark. And then, doing video calls with US or
Yeah.
events like this, you definitely need one of those.
The other two things I have is have a really good like wire and tech sort of organization system, and then just have that on you at all times. And then same thing, but for your travel documents. I've got this little like zip up envelope case thing that my passports, spare cash, and like my SIM cards go into. And those
Oh,
are,
nice.
if I have to just run, those things come in the bag, in the go bag. Um,
Exactly. I should
okay,
remember that one as well. I'm a
yeah.
bit chaotic and moving my stuff everywhere.
All right. So, I think we would both agree that there's a lot to be said for remote working in general, but it's not always bubblegum and roses. What are some of the less often spoken about challenges of remote?
Okay, I'm thinking of two. Number one is one we touched upon already, and it's the kind of sense of loneliness, right? Or feelings of isolation. I don't feel lonely a lot, but you definitely can feel isolated, especially when you're working from remote areas, like maybe yourself from a boat, or I've worked from really like rural areas in the middle of nowhere as well. So again, investing in building those like-minded connections and building meaningful connections with those like-minded people is super important. So again, both online and offline, maybe in your area by joining meetups or events, etc. So that's one. Another one, a big one, is taxes. So working, having a home base, maybe a bit of everywhere. You're traveling around. Maybe you're working with clients from everywhere. The tax situation can be really challenging, and it's one of my least favorite topics. As an entrepreneur as well, working for myself, but also as a remote worker. And two things. One is there's an amazing tool that I think just launched this week. They're called Work from Anywhere. So I'm not sure if it's live yet, because I was in touch with the founder this week, that they're launching the tool this week. And it's a great tool where in 30 seconds you can fill out your situation. If you want to go on a workation and work from a different destination, to have a report to see what your compliance and tax situation would be. So this is a great tool to figure out your tax situation. And another one, if you're working for yourself, is I have set up my business in Estonia last year because. And a second tip that I wanted to share is that I recently set up my business in Estonia since last year, because previously I was based in the Netherlands, and as you probably know by now, I moved to Portugal, and I wanted to set up a location independent business that basically can move with me when I set up a home base, maybe again in 3 years time somewhere else. So Estonia has this amazing amazing feature or business, I'm not sure how to call it, that allows you to set up a location independent business. It's called the e-residency program. So you can basically work from anywhere and work with clients anywhere. And this is also great in terms of your tax setup, so that you pay kind of corporate taxes there, and then your personal taxes are in the country wherever you're based. So that would be another tip as well to look at. I think there's more as well.
I should check out. I've not paid enough mind to these things, so I probably should.
Exactly, because it's such a topic that everybody you don't like it, so you're like, okay, I'll do that next year to figure out tax exactly. But yeah, I highly recommend it. For me, it's been only positive experiences, and I think there's now more programs offering such, or more countries offering such programs. So definitely have a look at those.
So I would recommend. I think a lot of people are aware of the challenges of moving around, and that's true. Like constantly traveling takes a toll on your body. But one of the things that I think is less talked about is the way that like a commitment to a remote working lifestyle really represents a lot of sacrifice in other ways too. I think it's a real career constraint, honestly. Like if you're really married to the remote lifestyle, it's getting harder and harder to realize that in some companies, in some countries, and that's something we'll talk about in just a minute. There are a lot of return to office mandates and so forth. So if that's something that you want to be committed to, like there are probably opportunity costs to doing that. There's opportunity costs in the personal side too. When you're moving around, maintaining relationships and friendships and partnerships can be really hard. So I think like that's something that people have to be really clear-eyed about when they say like, I want to do remote, because it's often it looks amazing and sounds amazing, but I think that there are like real challenges. So keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you go to a different continent like yourself, then it's hard to ask people to visit you, for example.
Yeah.
For me, I live just close by, so actually I have a lot of friends and family visiting me, which is another challenge to also set boundaries, as in, okay, I'm not just on holidays, I'm working. So
Right.
I can just with all the visitors have a holiday as well and not work. So setting boundaries is also, I think, a big unspoken challenge.
True, and you really have to be disciplined about it. It's like anything else. It's a professional thing that you have to give energy and time to. So
yeah.
Okay, so we touched on the RTO thing, and like I think it's inevitable these days. Just the headlines this week. U.S. federal government, no more remote, no more working from home. So in this relatively unfriendly climate, what do you think is in store for the bigger picture of remote work?
I think many, the traditional media, many companies are pushing return to the office and hybrid work, etc., as the next big trends. But I think there's enough evidence as well that shows, that people are asking for kind of work from anywhere lifestyles. And I think it's maybe, not, right now and in the short term, but in the long term, especially with the startups. I saw a post yesterday by someone who posted a list of startup companies backed by Y Combinator hiring remotely. And I think those startups, if you have set up your business intentionally as a fully remote business, it's a lot easier to grow fully remote and to have the right infrastructure, let's say, as a digital or fully distributed company. And this is where kind of the workforce will also tend towards, I think, in my opinion. I understand for the bigger companies like the, Amazon, Microsoft, etc., Facebook, it's a lot harder to go from such a big corporation back to, to a fully remote setup, because it's almost impossible. So I think it's not, I think it's not just hybrid is the future or work from anywhere, but it's like the flexible workforce. So embracing more work from anywhere, but also, there are still companies offering the hybrid options as well, and adjusting to the demands of the workforce at some point.
I couldn't agree more. My hot take with all this RTO stuff is like, good. I'm glad to see it. Not because I think it's a short-term loss, to be clear, but I'm really excited about the people who are going to really question their employment at like a Google or an Amazon. By doing this, they're really letting go of a lot of really sharp talent whose only sort of like problem is that they didn't want to be co-located at an office with, the rest of their company. So I'm sort of looking forward to just a lot of companies that are going to be founded in the next couple of years that are like remote native, and that was one of my frustrations with remote for a long time too, is we would always talk about like the benefits of remote. But I was like, okay, so then like where we should be seeing a bunch of startups being made, realizing the benefits of remote. But I think now this is the push for a lot of people to say like, okay, make a call. Like, do I want to go back to the office, or can I create something for myself that allows me and my team to continue working the way that we know we can be productive? So I would agree completely.
Yeah. And let's be honest, remote work isn't for everyone, right? So it's good that there's options for everyone, whatever you prefer. But I'm happy to see, the startups embracing remote work as well a lot more. I remember back in 2018 when I started my remote journey, the competition was still, it is today, but still there's a lot more companies offering remote work right now than there were 7-8 years ago. So I'm happy to see the upward trends. But again, remote work isn't for everyone. So it's good to see there's different options available.
Totally.
Whatever suits your lifestyle. Yeah.
Totally. Okay. Last question here. This should be an easy one, but a fun one. Mandy, what is your dream remote work destination?
Well, okay, so you prepared me with that question yesterday. Now I really had to think about it because I've traveled to so many countries, I've seen so many places, and I was like, what's one like cool experience that I've never done while working remotely? And I was like, working from a boat. So hereby an invitation if you'd ever like to do a home flopping
Totally.
experience.
Let's do
I've
it.
done house exchanges before. If you like to work from a tiny house in Portugal or a camper van and drive alongside the coast, then I'd love to switch and then just explore the world in different areas.
Totally. I'm so game. Let's do it.
One challenge: I don't know how to sail, but
It's you
I'm
can
sure
even
I
do
can
it
do
from the marina. It's fine.
it. Oh, yeah, true. I'll just
Just
be
stay
there
in the
in the
slip.
marina and
Yeah.
pretend that I'm sailing. Awesome.
Um,
How about you?
so I'm gonna stay on the boat, but so I've only been traveling along the western coast of Malaysia and Thailand. I would love to swing around to the Borneo side of Malaysia. It's beautiful. Sabah and Sarawak have a lot to offer. Just a huge island in general, and it seems like a dream. So I look at it on a map,
Yeah,
and sometimes I daydream about like the places that you could visit. So I think
yeah,
Borneo, and it's a little bit off the beaten path too, which is I think there's a lot to be said for. Especially
yeah.
if
I love
you've
it.
been to the Balis and you've been to the Bangkoks, the Chiang Mai's,
Yeah,
get out there a little bit.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be
just
on a
go.
boat, but it can be.
Exactly. Just go and you'll see where you'll end up, what islands or
Totally.
country you'll encounter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The
Let
future's
us know
now.
as
It's
well in
possible.
the for members watching this event. Let us know in the comments what your dream destination is. We'd love to know from you as well.
Maybe we can all meet up somewhere.
Exactly, alongside somewhere on the coast of Portugal or while sailing around the world.
Exactly. Well, Mandy, thank you so
All
much.
right.
It was really nice to get to know you. Maybe see you on the remote work road sometime.
Yeah, I hope to see you around. And as well, thank you so much. Thank you for hosting today's session, Jeremy, and firing all the questions to me. And it was a pleasure to be on the other side of the seat. And thank you to all of our members for joining today.
Nice meeting everyone. Take care, Mandy.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.